Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Imprint. And today we're looking at the life of Gopal Krishna Gokhale. It is his birthday today, 9th of May. If you think about him, what has been impact? So if you look in the subcontinent, both India and Pakistan are basically the proteges of Gokhale, right? Jinnah and Gandhi, right? The fathers of their respective nations were both his proteges, right? And very uniquely, his views were not just for freedom of India. He also talked about caste, and one of his famous speeches is on the depressed classes. And he says, "How can we possibly realize our national aspirations? How can our country ever hope to take a place among the nations of the world if we allow large numbers of our countrymen to remain sunk in ignorance, barbarism, and degradation?" So this is Gokhale on caste. So let's start. Okay, so if you think about him, I'll call him, he's one of the makers of modern India in simple terms. Okay, so he was born in 1866 in a village in coastal Maharashtra. He was the son of a police sub-inspector. He learned his letters in a rural school, and then he went to Kolhapur, where he completed matriculation. He was admitted to the Deccan College in Pune, where he shifted to Bombay's Elphinstone College. He was awarded his BA. So what happened was, because he was not that well off, he began to coach students to pay back his loans, right? And in 1884, right, and this is obviously not that long, he's just 18, with two young Brahmin reformers, Gopal Ganesh Agarkar and Bal Gangadhar Tilak, he founded the Deccan Education Society. So what the society was that, these three people, for the next 20 years, pretty much had focused their lives to educate, to focus on the higher education of Indians. Okay, they felt that without education, India will never get developed, so they were totally focused on that. And Gokhale himself joined one of the society as a teacher, right, because of its previous experience. He started teaching right even before. So in 1899, Ranade, who was also his mentor, right, gave him the editorship of the quarterly journal of the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, and in the same year he attended the first session of the Congress. Now in the Congress, right. Obviously, he spoke on the equities of the salt tax, right? But with that, he, obviously still was in education. He was on the faculty of education, the Ferguson College in Pune. He was greatly inspired by two thinkers, Edmund Burke and John Stuart Mill. Okay, so interestingly, he taught English literature, mathematics, and political economy. So, wide variety. And this was the case with most people in that era. They were polymaths, most of them. So in 1897, just turned 30, he went to London, and he testified to the Royal Commission on Poverty, right, and famines, right, on what happened in India, right, because remember there was a famine at that time in India as well. So he compared the relationship in his speech. So when he was in London and various places, he was invited to give a speech in Hastings. So he compared the relationship between Britain and India to that of a giant and a dwarf, where everything went to the giant and what was left went to the dwarf. Gokhale, right, with his speech became more and more popular and in politics. He was elected to the Bombay Legislative Council first, and this was in 1899, and the All India counterpart, the Imperial Council, 2 years later. So between 1902 and 1906, he simultaneously served as the president of the Pune municipalities. And while he was still teaching at Ferguson College, Pune. So what do you think? What do you think about Gokhale, right? So people like him is very, very, very rare. I think in that generation, because of the circumstances or the environment of India at that time. So what happened was a lot of people became selfless, I would say, and Gokhale was maybe the jewel among them. And right, he talked about the fact that education, when he started teaching, right, so he felt that there's a huge disparity. So as we know that he went to South Africa to meet Gandhi during his agitations there against the issues with Indians, that the Indians were not allowed to walk on the same path, had to carry a passport, right, identification card, etc., etc. So with that, now Gokhale said that, is it any different, right, in his in his one of his speeches, he said that, is it any different from what is happening to our brethren in India? We have untouchability, and maybe we are even worse right? Because we don't even allow the same type of equality, and we are rigid. So gave the example of Chamberlain. He said Chamberlain was from a family of shoemakers. What he did for a living was making shoes, but that did not let him being so he could eat at the same table as the queen. Still, with that, okay, that would never happen in India. Okay, where the caste system is rigid. So he says that if we allow people to remain in ignorance, barbarism, and degradation, we can never become as among the great nations of the world. So as we were talking about, what did he talk about? What was his famous speeches? So this is one of his wonderful speeches on a tax burden on the peasantry and the need for better education. Right? He said, there should be compulsory education, still a dream, right? Regardless of caste, religion, and gender. He demanded more seats for Indians in the Imperial Council. He asked that the annual budget of India be open for scrutiny and amendment in the light of criticism, right? So in one of the speeches, he talked about the fact that what is it that you always need to have a surplus, right? So it was what was happening in the budget of the government of India. They would tweak it so that their surplus existed and that could be transferred to the British, right? So he said that it makes no sense to have that. Then for Gokhale, obviously, he acquainted himself with different parts of India. One of his suggestions when Gandhi asked him, right, about India, he said travel. He said you should go and travel India, right? And even he went to South Africa. We talked about that. In 1905, there is this famous speech at a college in Madras. He founded the Servants of Indian Society, right? And he said that it is, people of India educated people of India need to come and work for the people of India. And we need to come and work in any field you might choose, education, etc., right? But regardless of caste and creed, we are supposed to help. And this society still exists, interestingly. So what about his view on religion? So he obviously has a lot of views. So he tried to reach out to the Muslims. He was free of sectarian prejudice. Interestingly, he was regarded as pro-British. So remember, he's a moderate. So because being a moderate, he was seen to be pro-British, right? Even if right now a lot of people would write answers, right? A lot of my students, they would consider moderates to be pro-British. So remember, moderates of that time were radicals. And, when John Maynard Keynes met him in England, Keynes said that he's too much of a agitator. So interestingly, he was moderate for the radicals and too extreme for the establishment. And Lord Hardinge, right, called Gokhale the most dangerous enemy of British rule in India. In 1914, Gokhale turned out knighthood, knighthood. He died the following year, and he was not even 50. So it's very, very sad. We lost him very, very quickly. Right? He had already done a great deal for the colony, has shown many compatriots many new directions. Summing up his life, his biographer, right, B.R. Nanda, says Gokhale hated foreign rule but did not blame all the ills from which India suffered on the British. He wanted her to shake off the shackles of social economic backwardness as well as of political subjection. He wanted to turn the encounter with the Raj into an opportunity for secular, modern, and democratic society. Now, I'd like to end with the Bal Gangadhar Tilak to Gokhale when he died. He says, "This diamond of India, this jewel of Maharashtra, this prince of workers is taking eternal rest on funeral ground. Look at him and try to emulate him." So if you think about it, I think we would be very lucky if even anyone in India in the last 50 years could be even close to him, right? Right, and even in the future, I would say. Thank you so much for listening. Do subscribe and like our channel. Join our Telegram group for the video for this video. Thank you so much.